Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inside the Shell podcast with your host, Ryan Shell. Guys, I can't even lie to you. Today, I'm so pumped. I have so much adrenaline. I've got so much energy just like built up inside me. And I think it's just because it's 56 degrees here in Cleveland where I'm at. And I was legit skipping around my college campus today because no joke, I have not seen grass in months. And it's been -8, -5 degrees outside for the past couple months. So going from -5, -8 degrees to 56 degrees, it felt like a dream come true, honestly. And I was walking outside today going, oh my gosh, I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. Like, this is amazing, and it reminded me how much I miss seeing the sun. So, yeah, I'm doing great today. I hope you guys are too. I've got a couple banger quotes for us, and one comes from the book I'm reading currently, which is called Leadership: Achieving Life-Changing Success from Within, and it's by Sergeant Major Alfred L. McMichael. And here is that quote. Let me pull it up real quick here. There is value in that old saying, this too will pass. It usually does, but it's how you come out the other side that matters. Now, when I heard this, I'm pretty sure everybody has heard the saying, this too shall pass. But I think we don't really think about it too much when we hear about it. We kind of think of it more on like the surface level, and we think like, I mean, yeah, things come and go, time passes, yeah, we get that, but when you think about it in more certain situations, you tend to think about it a little differently. Like, for example, think about, I'll give a great example for me on this run. So I actually got sick about 2 weeks ago, and I was not 2 weeks, but a week ago. And, I didn't train for about 4 or 5 days. And it really, like, I lost a little bit of aerobic fitness. I wasn't feeling all that great. And I ran outside for the first time on Monday, and it was terrible. But you have to remember, this too shall pass. Like, think about it. During the run, I'm thinking, this sucks. This is probably the worst run I've been on in who knows how long. I still completed it. Was it sucky? Yeah. But there is gonna be a point in time where that's gonna get easy again. Like, just because I got sick and lost a little bit of fitness, I come back to that. Give me like 2, 3 weeks, I'm right where I was, and I'm right where my fitness level would have been at before I got sick. So, and you could take that for literally anything else. If you're studying for a super hard exam, time's gonna pass. It's kind of weird. There's this saying, like, when time passes when you're having fun, right? Time passes when you're doing something and you enjoy yourself so much, time flies by, right? So when you're studying for an exam, that time probably won't fly by and you're probably stressed out, right? You're probably thinking, oh crap, like, I really need to know this stuff. I really need to lock it down, study, get everything in my brain before I take this exam, right? But this isn't the end of the world, right? Like, this is going to pass. Time, sure, can fly by for things that are fun, but in the moment, they seem like they drag on. Like, I know for high school kids that are listening right now, I remember being in class. Like, there are specific classes I remember in high school where I was just sitting there, like, looking at the clock the entire time. And then I'd look back up at the clock after I didn't look at it for, like, maybe 5 minutes or so. I'd look up like, oh my gosh, it's been 5 minutes and it feels like an hour. Like, I understand that, but it's just because we are not in the right frame of mind and we are not having a good time, right? We are not interested in whatever's going on. So these things will pass. The exam you're studying for that you're worried about, that will pass. The stress will wash over you and you will eventually get that done and move it out of the way. Nothing really lasts forever except regret. And that's one thing that a lot of people, live with, is regret. And that is exactly why I love this quote, because this too shall pass is much more than just a meaning. Everything will pass but regret. And when you are in the process of something that's hard, you will be better for it when you come out of it. Or you maybe will not be, depending on what your circumstance is and how you handle that certain situation. So I think that's a really banger quote. And that's the first one I got for you guys today. Let me pull out the other one I got. I got two today. Usually I only do one, but I got two. My journal. Oh, yes. Here we go. I heard this online. I can't even lie. I was just scrolling through Reels. I know. Yeah, unfortunately, I scroll through Reels too sometimes. I don't really go into like a deep rabbit hole, but I be on Reels sometimes. Can't even lie. But here's the quote from this. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin. Now, I had no idea. Like I've probably heard this before. Like it sounds so familiar, but Benjamin Franklin, I had no idea he said that. No idea. And it's really weird because I be seeing quotes from people and I'm like, when did you say that? Like it's so it's so random, but that's kind of like the first thought that comes into my mind when I heard it. I'm like, Benjamin Franklin said that? Seriously? Well, good for him because that's a really good quote. But essentially like the best thing I can kind of give an example for this quote and explaining it is for me, I like to meal prep things for school. I have food all the time. I get really antsy if I don't have like the nutrition with me. So like that's why I don't like traveling that much because it's kind of a hassle for me to get the nutrition in while I'm traveling. However, by meal prepping the night before or even waking up a little earlier and making a meal before I head out for the day, that is preparing and preparing successfully, right? If I think about this, not even in the meal prep sense, like let's say another example I could give is preparing for a test. That test date is always going to stay the same. It's not moving, You got to prepare for it on that day. And on that day, you need to be prepared. You need to have the knowledge that is on that exam that you're going to be tested on, that information. So essentially, so I was talking about this before, but if you have this exact exam date, that thing's not moving. That's staying put. You can't move that date. So no matter what the time frame is, 3, 4, 2, 5 days, whatever, between you and this exam, you either like procrastinate the study time or you don't, and you prepare well to perform well on this exam. Same thing it is with any physical race or any physical, like a bodybuilding show, like a marathon race. Guys taper off before a marathon race. They don't do that much running. They kind of just chill out. Same thing with a bodybuilder. They don't really work out 2 days before. They just taper off and they prepare well. Now, I love those two examples for the physical because the amount of work that goes into those type of things is insane. My bodybuilding prep was 6 months. This marathon prep that I'm in is also about to be 6 months, maybe longer. If you think about it, by not preparing yourself, you're ultimately going to fail at whatever you tried to set out to do. So think about it like this. If you don't prepare at all, you're ultimately going to fail. It literally says it in the quote. If you expect a high performance rate and a high result and a good result, you have to put in the work to achieve said result. Think about it. How could you get 110% or 100% on an exam without studying? Sure, you might have prior knowledge to the exam, right? But even with prior knowledge, I don't think anybody could ace an exam with prior knowledge. Same with working out, right? Let's say you want to hit a 315 bench by the end of the year and you don't bench at all or even work out and do the work to reach that 315 bench PR. It's never going to happen because you didn't put in the work. So by preparing, by being consistent, by doing the work, you're ultimately going to lead to success. You just need to put in the time. All right. So those are the two really good quotes I had this week, but let's kind of transition here to the main topic of today. Your future self is always watching you. Now, imagine your future self in the corner of your room, just watching every single decision you make. Every single one. He's just sitting there. He or she is sitting there just looking at you. You don't know he's there and you never see him. He's invisible. But he sees when you wake up early. He sees when you hit the snooze button. He sees when you train and he sees when you quit. Think about all those different decisions that we make on a daily basis. Whether we choose to hit the snooze button when our alarm goes off. He's going to see that. And you know what? The worst part is he's not going to get better when you don't show up to train. He's not going to get better when you half-ass a workout. He's not going to get better if he doesn't show up to the library to study. He's not going to get better if he doesn't apply for a job. He's not going to get better. He's not going to benefit for anything your past self, which is your present self, is doing now. Think about it like this. Your future self is like game footage being recorded, and every action is being saved. That later version of you will have to watch it all. Think about it. So when I played football, we had film, and we would go in and we'd see some of the mistakes we were making. Coach would be yelling at us sometimes, and he'd either yell at us or he'd be like, give us constructive feedback, which was good because that's what we needed to be better. But if you are watching this game footage back and you're seeing all the mistakes you're making, how are you going to get better? You're watching your mistakes, right? think about that in this context. Think about your future self is watching your present self screw up. And what do you think your future self is trying to tell your present self? So just imagine this with me. If your future self, was watching a movie of you, what would he be telling you to do? Think about it. Like, it's a genuine question. Like, you could even pause this podcast and think about this, because it's really mind-boggling. Because if my future self is watching me in the corner of my room and he's seeing all the decisions I'd make, he's either going to think, this kid works really hard, I think I'm in good hands, and I think I'm going to be successful. Or if I hit the snooze button, if I don't do the work, if I don't do anything I set out to do, and I don't actually live what I preach, he's probably thinking like, dang, where am I going? I'm not comfortable leaving my life in this guy's hands, right? So you could even think about it as if it's like a security camera, right? At like a local museum. Let's say you're touring a local museum, and the security camera always records things. It doesn't judge anything, it just records. But later, the footage tells the truth. If you went into a museum and you stole an artifact, that's a bad decision, right? And the footage is going to reveal that. So put that in like a training context. If you're trying to train for a race, a show, or any like a high rocks competition, whatever it is, if your future self were to see you not train, not show up, not eat right, whatever it is, they know they're not going to perform well in that event. In any sporting event, in anything that you guys are training for right now, they know they're not going to succeed. It just goes to show consistency tramples everything. And just like that security camera, like what we were talking about with the museum, it's just there to record. Your future self can't tell you what to do. But if you imagine that he's there and he's watching you all the time, you're eventually going to make better choices. You're going to think, well, I think my future self will probably thank me if I eat eggs and fruit in the morning instead of a sugary cereal or pancakes or whatever it is, or a cinnamon roll. You know what I mean? The more you think about your future self, the more decisions you make that are going to benefit him or her, So the way I like to think about it is my future self right now has a really successful podcast. He has the sports psychology private practice. He works with a bunch of athletes all over the globe. He travels. He's successful. He talks to a bunch of people. He's got a great network. That's my dream. And he's always sitting there in the corner looking at me. And sometimes, we all have bad days. I understand. But sometimes you got to show up tired, show up broken, show up any way you possibly can. Because not every day is going to be a highlight. Life is not a highlight reel. My pastor last Sunday, he talked about this great idea. Essentially, when we talk to people, we always give them, the movie version of our story. We never give them the book version. Now, the book version has little details that lead, to our character development, but movies have a shorter time frame where they actually, it's like probably 2 hours is like a good time frame for a movie. They have a shorter window to get the message across and get the character development across, get the story across. So essentially, we never tell that version because we leave out small details. But even though those small details actually matter in who we become and who are we trying to become. So if we think about this in terms of our future self, what is that book looking like right now? And what chapter are you in? What's it called? What are the first couple sentences you would write down? And how would it end? How do you want it to end? If you were writing a novel, man, your story is your story. You're writing it. It's your choice whether you want it to end in a happy ending or a bad ending. So this is going to lead me to my second point. Your future self will either thank you or resent you for the decisions you make. So as I was kind of talking about before, your future self, he or she, lives with the consequences of your discipline or your laziness. Your future self is going to inherit everything you build, or worse, fail to build. Imagine building I love using this example. Imagine building a house for someone, but you don't live there. Imagine building a house for someone, but it's for somebody else to live in. That person could be you. You could be doing all this work and building something just for somebody else, not even for you. Think about another example could be like a student who procrastinates on an exam. That study day or that exam day comes no matter what. It's how you choose to spend your time that matters. You either show up prepared or you show up to fail. Just like we were talking about that in the quote of the week. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. If you don't show up, if you don't do the work, you're ultimately not going to get the outcome or the grade you want on that exam. That's just how life goes. Imagine you are applying for a job. You show up to a job interview and you're not prepared. You didn't read anything. You didn't even see like their mission statement. You didn't even look at that. You didn't have anything prepared. You didn't practice maybe a few practice questions. You just show up to show up. You're not dressed. You're not prepared. What do you think is the hiring rate on that? Do you think they're really going to hire you because you showed up in Crocs or sweatpants, or when you when you tried to answer questions, you just kind of blank faced it and you looked at them like, I don't know how to answer that, sir. Being prepared and showing up every day to do the work and being consistent, that is how your future self will not become lazy. It'll inherit everything you build, everything. Think about like what I was talking about the house. You want to be the person to build your own house and live in it because you own that. Think about that. Like, you want to build that house and think about it in any state you want, your dream house, right? Are you going to be building that dream house for somebody else? Or are you going to be building that dream house for you? Because I know when I'm older, I want to build my house, build my foundation, sitting on my couch watching football with a couple dogs. And I know a lot of people want that, but we have to do the work and we have to do it with integrity, focus, discipline, and consistency. Bottom line. This leads me to my third point, and I think it's probably one of the most important things that many people have started to talk about, and I'm talking about now as well. Comfort is the worst thing for you. Comfort is actually betraying your future self. When you think about it, remember when we talked about him just sitting over there watching you? Comfort only feels good now, in the present. The decisions you make to feel comfortable, they feel great in the first, day. Let's say you make an instantaneous decision. You're going to feel great. Like, great example, today, I was taking a shower. Warm water felt great. I was comfortable. I turned off the water and then I thought about, oh, I should probably take a cold shower. I've been telling myself to become uncomfortable more often. And I grabbed the towel and I'm like, nah, I shouldn't. Nah, I already turned the water off. It's a perfect example. You know what I did? I threw the towel back over the little rack that I have and I turned it on to cold. I said, I'm at least going to do it. I can always turn it back on. But for us, we make instantaneous decisions because they're convenient for us. Because I was like, oh, because the water's off, it's okay for me not to get into this cold shower. Then again, because it was inconvenient to be uncomfortable, I didn't want to do it. And that's how things work like that all the time. A great example I can give is if you guys have ever seen Rocky, especially Rocky 3. It's hot take, it's probably better than 1. I think Rocky 3 is probably better than 1. Hot take. But compare this to Rocky 3. If you guys haven't seen Rocky 3, I'll give you a quick little synopsis. Rocky's rich, man. He's a great renowned boxer. He's respected by pretty much everybody. And, he's got a family, he's got a wife. He's, like I said, he's rich and he gets comfortable. He's training in like luxury gyms. Like he's being treated like a champion, which he is, but he's not training as hard and he's not working as hard. So because he gets comfortable, Rocky takes on this opponent called Clubber Lang. Now, Clubber Lang is an up and coming boxer and he's huge, he's jacked, and he's huge. He's a very formidable opponent for Rocky. And what ends up happening is he loses. The main character, Rocky, gets bashed around, treated like he just gets thrown all over the place and he just gets like practically spit on. Like it wasn't even a competition. And when you look at it, he was becoming comfortable with his new training methods, his luxury life, and he was feeling safe while slowly actually his life was making him weaker. And it's a great story. If you guys ever want to watch Rocky 3, I highly recommend it. But essentially, at the end of the story, he beats Clubber Lang because he gets trained by Apollo Creed, and Apollo Creed basically brings his fire back out in him. And he says, screw everything that you have right now because your legacy just got tarnished by this guy. Who do you want to be remembered by? And, they have the whole beach scene. He's running on the beach with Apollo. He's swimming in the water. He's punching the bag, like with the theme song. He's got, the training montage. It's great. Love the film, but it's a perfect representation of it. Perfect. I'll give you another great movie that could also describe this kind of idea I'm trying to get at. with comfort being like betraying your future self. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Raimi trilogy, which is Spider-Man. It's the original one with Tobey Maguire. Hot take again, Tobey Maguire's the best Spider-Man. Said it. But Spider-Man 2 is just a great example of this because the whole movie he's getting put on his butt. Like he's just everything is just falling apart in his life. He gets fired in like the first 10 minutes. His teacher, he's not showing up to class. He's like practically, the teacher was going to say he was going to fail him if he didn't show up and he didn't put in the work anymore. And basically, Peter Parker gets tired of suffering, and being Spider Man costs him everything, his sleep, his relationships, his peace. So he makes a decision. You want to know what he does? He throws away the suit and he quits. He tries to go out his life and like be normal and live an easier life. And at first he's like he's doing good in school. He's getting better with he has a better connection with MJ. Like he's making more time for things that he really cared about. And he feels like relieved. The pressure is gone from being Spider-Man. But then reality hits, just like Rocky did with Clubber Lang when he gets beat. Without Spider-Man, people suffer. Crime goes through the roof. Innocent people are in danger all the time. And Peter himself is like almost feels empty because deep down he knows he abandoned his purpose. He abandoned what he wanted to become, what he was becoming. But essentially what I'm trying to get at here is Peter chose comfort. He chose a more luxury life and something that had less pressure involved than being Spider-Man. But comfort eventually costed him his identity practically. He didn't lose his powers first. He lost his purpose first. So comfort made his life easier, but also made him weaker and made him a weaker person. It's like throwing away your armor because it's heavy. You're going into battle and you're just like, I don't want to do this. You throw your armor away. It's too heavy without realizing it was the only thing protecting you, and Peter Parker didn't stop being Spider-Man when he lost his powers. He stopped being Spider-Man when he chose comfort over responsibility. When he had that scene where he's like trying to web sling and he falls and he's like, what's happening to me? It's not the fact that he's losing his powers. It's the fact that he chose a normal life when he could have succeeded. Well, eventually he comes back and he does succeed, but when he chooses to live out a life that was never originally planned for him, his future self needed him to endure hardship, but his present self chose relief instead, and that created regret. So I guess in theory, comfort didn't destroy Spider-Man. His decision to choose comfort actually did. And it's crazy, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be Spider-Man. And I feel like a lot of people want to be Spider-Man. But when it's time to like save the day, nobody wants to be Peter Parker when it's time to like suffer alone. Almost, it's insane. But getting back on track now with some of the examples I was given. To my fourth point, I think discipline is a gift to your future self. Every workout, every sacrifice you make to be better and be the best version you can, every moment, every decision you have to make, whether it's right and wrong and choosing what to do and what not to do, it all leads back to the quote of the week. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Choosing the right thing to do is a lot harder than choosing the wrong thing. Nick Bare has this great quote. If you guys don't know who Nick Bare is, he's like he owns BPN. He's the founder of that brand, and it's basically an endurance slash fitness brand. It's really good, but he talks about the hard right over the easy wrong, and choosing the harder path is always the more difficult one, but you're always going to be more better for it than you were choosing the comfort path, the easy path, the relief path. And when you go through the hard stuff and the hard times, that's ultimately going to create that better version of yourself and your future self. So kind of wrapping everything up in like a little bow, I think if you imagine your future self always watching you, like a security camera, like film, you choose not to have comfort and you don't let comfort betray you and your future self. If you take discipline as more of a gift to your future self, ultimately you see one day you're going to become that future self. And you become that future version of you. But I think it's your job to create and mold that version of you into something you're actually proud of. And that takes a lot of effort, man. I mean, it took me a while to kind of figure out where my direction was. And I know a lot of people are struggling with that now, trying to find their path. But going back based off this concept, if you truly believe there's always somebody watching you, you're never going to make a decision that's going to harm version of yourself that wants you to succeed, bottom line. If it's easier for you to imagine your dad or your mom behind you, or a relative or your guardian, they want what's best for you. So if you imagine that special person behind you, you're in turn also going to think, well, what would they want me to do? If somebody was writing my story, how would they want it to end? If somebody was watching me on a movie, like in a movie, what would they be telling me to do? What would they be wanting the main character of the story to go out? These are all genuine concepts that I've been thinking about over this past week or two. And I think we all struggle with this concept, but I think once we adapt it into our lifestyle, I think we're all going to be better for it. I know I will. I know I'm starting to incorporate it a little bit more. And I hope by you guys listening here today that you can take some value from this, because it's starting to help me a lot. And all I want is for you guys to hear it and for me to just share it. And if you guys enjoyed this podcast, let me know. You guys are always feel free to leave comments. Constructive feedback is amazing. But yeah, this has been Inside the Shell, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for tuning in.